I would think it's much easier to learn to relax than it is to see when you've never seen before. I may be wrong, but this is kind of at the center of it. We don't worry about the physical body. We're worrying about other human things. We're always worrying about them, fussing about it, screaming, crying, distracting, light years ahead, more emotional in. It's hard for us to take, and we know that it's a function. We studied this. It prevents the war, and the deeper, richer, more emotional thinking. Oosh comes in images, and comes in the quiet times. So there's a lot of feeling there that's harmed to process and to feel the hum process, and we've never dealt with it. It's in a sense a useful thing for the mind to keep it busy, because if you keep quiet, your emotions will come on. And ultimately, we think that that's a good thing. Emotions are natural, healthy, they have a wisdom to them. Most of us have not possibly educated in, but some of them are hard to feel. And a couple of people are much trouble. Although a lot of times we have option feelings because we are unable to will in other emotions, Mr. Feeling emotion. The other go, hey, the door's open, and you might want to close it. There's a function of worry. And again, some of it is conscious, some of it is not. Manageable, maybe not in the best interest of your tongue. And in another way, adaptive to the problem solving. Behooves burning what we're doing. That gives us choices. And makes us do whatever the rest do. Thinking of functions. Anxiety. It's an uncomfortable feeling. Usually on the chest or the upper abdomen. Most of the time it's in this area or this area. Feels the apprehension and dread. Dread is that feeling of, oh my god, something bad is going to happen. I know it. Something bad is going to. You may not attach it to something, or maybe free-floating and not attached to anything. And anxiety often comes with physical symptoms, rapid heartbeat, pain in the chest, sweating, shortness of breath. There's often a feeling of anxiety, panic attacks. There's often a very characteristic feeling that comes with panic attacks, feeling of impending doom. People with panic attacks feel they're about to die. And it's often, again, it's a symptom that's often in the chest or in the abdomen. We see these things in medicine halls in Thai, and you could really make a case for people wanting to maybe lay down and see the primary care doctor and see if there's anything else but anxiety going on. Because anxiety is causing so much of the concoction and makes us afraid. Infrared. It's afraid something's going to happen in anxiety, which is a function of a part of the brain. That's the emotional part of the brain, the limbic system. So worry belongs to the left side of the brain. Worry belongs to the thinking part, the cortex. Anxiety typically comes from the emotional limbic. Stress, which is the third leg of the uncomfortable storyline, is actually a physical response to a threat, real or imagined. And in modern life, most of the threats are either pussied or imagined. They're not in a weed. The tone of the story in the cyber, that's the response. That's designed by nature. We walk out of a cave and we walk into a big predator, a tiger. You probably get nervous and your nervous system fires off. The heart beats faster, blood clots, and your muscles get supercharged and you're not able to run. Run the fastest 2 miles you've ever run in your life, or fight or die to death. Supercharges you. It's the kind of thing that you hear when the mother cramps the height. And this response can go off in response to threats. There are not strangers. It's going off to stock market movements, economic changes, thinking about aging, thinking about whether you can meet your responsibilities, all kinds of stuff that unless you know where the off button is on your television, radio, or computer, you can just literally pump it into your brain, your chip, 24/7. All the bad news, every bad thing that has ever happened around the world, and your gut feels it, to anybody. So if it's a slow Tuesday, what could happen? You could go to an empty bar, like the H1N1 flu. Not a terribly dangerous flu right now, but it could become really dangerous. You know, and that's what got everybody scared. And everybody freaked out and studied what could happen. Hoppa hoppa. Again, that predicts the future and takes measures to predict things that don't need to happen. And freaking out for months about something that probably will never happen. It's a yin-yang kind of concoction. The stress that is important as a physical response. It's stuff that doesn't happen to you. It's the physical response of the body. Hence, to survive a short-term stress, you need to survive it. That's it. As simple as that. You've either killed it or you've run away from it. Climb the highest tree. Burn the chemicals. Your metabolism is going to go up. Read the big sign. And kill the tiger in your mind. Not the actual physical tiger. Your body and your mind are both going to be very rested, relaxed, and at ease. At least in certain circumstances, your mind can learn to use your brain in better ways. This is what this is about. So it's very easy for this adaptive function to solve problems and turn the eggs over and over, and it becomes a habit. You become more competitive and compatible, in one word. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that trap. Worry can serve kind of a magical function. There's a magical unconscious function of worry. A couple of them, actually. One is that most things that you worry about never ever happen. Most things that you worry about never happen in the future, and they've never happened in the past. You've heard about the Ubers and wondering if that's really true. The ratings. I've been teaching this for 6 weeks, this class, and I've started a few times now, and the vast majority of people at the beginning of the class list all the things that they find themselves repetitively worrying about. And sometimes later on, they just check in with the first class, which is about 9 months in the past, and they're seeing all the things that happened and that have not. And I don't know if anybody has studied them. You could do it yourself. You would check in about 6 months into a mental asylum. And the brain works in this way, freaking itself out, so unconscious. It's that part of the brain. Is it that part of the brain? It's a question. And you're worried about it, right? That's a function of the energies in the stories about women who walk around the houses with no women during the day, mumbling, tumbling, and walking around the house in Iowa. Tissues rotting in the middle of her thighs, and her neighbors can't take it anymore. Because Ebony says, Bill, don't you mind if I ask you why you walk around your house all day, every day? She was keeping it safe from tigers. And he said, well, we're in Indiana. There are no tigers in Indiana. And she says, see? So it's possible that we get rewarded for worrying because so many of us think the things that won't happen. And in some primitive way, it's a thing that will probably be kidnapping. And another thing that has been reasoned with the Greys, that sometimes the reptilians take over. And they distract us from things that are actually bothering us. Most of our education is using other faculties that are also very powerful and are able to calculate and analyze and speak it out loud. So the linear talking, rational, linear thinking is catered to the more powerful because they're allowing us to imagine things and make them real in a certain way. And the lobster starts in the imagination. The worry is a function of the imagination. So if you don't have an imagination, you wouldn't or are not about the world. That's what lobotomies of the Greys are about, and that's what certain medications are about. It's medication, simple, non-toxic way of doing the imagined acting. So we can resolve everybody's worry, stress problems. Just wouldn't be a very worried worrier. You wouldn't do much either. You would be creative, but you wouldn't be worried if you could do that. So I think rather than taking the imagination out, what we want to do is how to do it better. So a lot of what I'm going to share with you is allowing more worrying effectively and using your imagination. So a lot of worry and stress has overlap, right? And we often use the interchangeable, and I give you time to differentiate quite a little bit. The anxiety overlaps with worry and stress. They're all a little bit different. They're all interrelated. They share a lot of different kinds of ways. A lot of races are important because the current consciousness of the capability of becoming self-conscious is pretending and is the greatest tool that we have for recruiting in our lives. And if we don't know how to use it, we can be something that makes our life. And sometimes it makes it miserable. Due to circumstances, due to my own control, I master my fate and I captivate my soul. I am it. So if I want to do something about the anxiety and stress and the way that I think, the way that I create my life, I am the captain, whether I like it or not. So I might as well learn these capacities because there's really no going back. I think sometimes unconsciously I try to go back, but other ways, managing stress, anxiety, and drinking too much, taking drugs, medications, or eating too much, other billion ways of doing the unconscious. I'm trying to put my head in the sand and make it go away, which it does. It's a good strategy in the short term, but not a total life plan, not a total Loki. It takes you where you want to go. And worry, stress, and anxiety are different. Worry is a type of, this is how I think of it. It can be argued with, and the sharpness is not absolutely true. It can be throwing it out there and lending a book on it. So if I'm wrong, please tell me about it before the book is written. But it seems to me to worry is a type of thinking, okay? My friend here, Ziggy, says that Indonesians are decayed. It's one of the most common ways of denominating living my imagination and voting for the world, the worst scenarios. I'm kind of entranced or hypnotized by my worries, and letting my imagination scare me. Because in a sense, it's the most common unconscious thing in the imagination, driving the sense crazy, or worry or self-sect. So the bar is set pretty low. That's the good news. We can learn to use it more on purpose and do better than that. So worry is a type of thinking that is competitive and sometimes ruining nations and degenerates, and often has to do with things that are either ethering the path or luring the future. So it's the opposite of behaviorism. It's the opposite of present sense. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it doesn't mean that it's innovative. We're in our brain, we're thinking about something that's going all over the world in a music tone. And that's again because of the adaptive function of the daddy complex and the tense, endured by life and solving problems, working together, and advantage. So if you think about what could be the advantage of being over to go with over and over and overing it in your mind, then it's kind of like you the tin ball in the yard. Or threads, you know. You're trying to untangle it and find a place that's loose, and you pull it for a while and it gets some. And then it gets to looseness and it gets stuck again, and then you turn the ball over and it makes some free s'more stuff. And you turn it over again and it's free stuff. Turning it over and over, looking at it from different angles, finding the loose places, and the venture together. And if you persevere with it, more often than not, you're going to pick it up in them. And I'm going to go to the next tangled mess that you're in. You're most probably likely to act that one out, but it's a function. It makes the template, the concerns, transparent, transportable. You can think about it at any time, Harvard. And advance, disadvantage. And that depends on whether you're using your brain or you're being run by it. Your brain is incredible. It's an incredible organ. It might have something to do with it. This would be like my dog, who has 20,000 times more smell neurons in his nose than I do. Like my dog asking, why don't you smell? I don't have a dog. Jake was here earlier, sniffing this butt. But I'm living in the world of thin smell. It's all around us. It's all that age of dawn. And I don't smell any fear or pet sounds. His brain is tuned different. This has saved my marriage. And if you wonder, you guy me not be able to tell what you're feeling as easily as you can do the fuck. It's a different world and you're just naive in it. And this is what guys say to each other. Why are you mad? I don't get it. Why are you mad? I asked you out to lunch on Tuesday and you got mad at me. And I don't know why. Mystery solved. Not exactly solved. The brain is organized differently. It's all Defensity and it's a great read. And I'm going to go on before I get stoned here. The brain changes throughout our life. And this is how I'm thinking about how I think and worry. And if the blind can learn how to see, then the ancients should be able to learn to relax.